Hello, welcome to Six Tackles with Gus. The finals are finally here, and what a series it shapes up as being. You'll see every game live and free on Nine's Wide World of Sports. On the podcast today, we'll look at all the four finals for week one. Some end-of-season awards for Gus. Who's he going to heap praise on? Souths and Eels, shock emissions from the finals. We'll have a little chat about that and all the NRLW news as well. Welcome, Gus.
Matthew, how you doing?
Excellent. Gee, the weather's beautiful.
Getting that way, isn't it?
I hit off at 7 o'clock yesterday on the golf course and was wearing a shirt, not even a jumper.
Nice.
You had the boat out. Good boating weather.
Soon.
Yeah?
I needed someone to give it a service.
Yep.
Not sure if it'll start properly this time.
Mm.
But certainly during the summer I'll be using it.
A bit of fishing. Do you fish?
I try to. I don't catch anything. The bloke who lives next door to me is a world champion fisherman.
Like actually a world champion?
Well, yeah, he's like a genius at it.
Wow.
He's got his own, he's got all the good gear. Like when we were kids, we'd go down and throw a line in the water, fish in the water, and we'd catch those little brims about that long, Then the kids went out with him one day, and they come home with two garbage bins full of fish this big. They never went with me again. So
yeah.
Obviously, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, right. I'm scared of fish.
Why would you?
I've got a phobia of fish.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
if it's weird, I just cut the line.
I
don't mess with it. I just cut the line if I don't know what it is.
Like I'm scared of
fish.
fish.
If it's not a brim or a flathead, I kind of like just throw it back.
I went to Fiji on a holiday and didn't realise that there's a billion little fish as you go to run in the water, and I was about to jump in and I nearly died. Didn't go in the water.
I did a lot of fishing as a kid. Loved it, but yeah.
You have plenty of time during the off season, if indeed you have one. All right, heaps to get through today on the podcast.
Yes! No. No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
First question. With this magnificent warm weather and the footy finals here, Luke Brooks should get plenty of use out of his new barbecue.
I suppose he will. I suppose he will.
I saw him and his Tigers teammates had a race day at the weekend. I wanted to mention the Canterbury stuff as well with their wonderful community contribution. But Brooksy, it's a perfect gift for the footy finals, isn't it? Just get the steaks out, get the family out.
If you say so.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Oh, it's becoming barbecue weather. I thought that was a giggle. Sharks Roosters should be held at a neutral ground with a much larger capacity.
Yes. So I explained this in 100% footy the other night. And like I know I'm a dinosaur and I'm very old. I've never agreed with the home ground semi-final philosophy. But I don't know how you get around it these days. Back in my time, the big thrill of playing in finals football was to go and play at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Yep.
In those days, it was a Sydney competition. And you'd play and there'd be a top five, or in the old days it was a top four, but top five, and then you'd play at the cricket ground. That was the big thrill. And then they built this great stadium called the Sydney Football Stadium, and that was a thrill too. But a couple of teams used that as their home ground, and that's when things started to come unstuck a little bit. Then, of course, we bought the beautiful Olympic Stadium at Homebush, and other stadiums have sort of been come around. And then we started to bring teams in from Queensland, then Melbourne. We had the Super League War, and things changed. We were in Townsville and Auckland and Perth and all those other areas. And I can't remember the first one that it was, but I think it was the first time that Cowboys qualified for a semi-final. And Broncos, I think Wayne Bennett even agreed to go and play it in Townsville.
He did, yes.
Because of the crowd and the occasion. And obviously, when you're going to play semi-finals between a Sydney team and a regional team, an out-of-Sydney team, here in Sydney, there's not, in the early days, there wasn't much support for a Cowboys or a Melbourne or those sort of teams coming in there. So they felt, well, we'll play it in the smaller suburban ground, which was all good. And I don't mind it, but for me, the thrill of being in the finals was playing on the big ground. I don't know whether any ground has that type of aura about it anymore. I don't know why teams would be afraid to go and play the Roosters at Allianz or go and play South Sydney at Accor or go and play Parramatta at Combank. I don't understand why people would be against that. But there's this thing about home ground advantage that's going to get you across the line. I don't think it's going to help the Shark on the weekend, Matthew.
I'll get to that.
Yeah.
I'll get to that.
But I But there are too many people. There was a final series years ago. Remember when Jared Hayne was making the big run to the final, 2009?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they played Dragons in the last round of the competition and then again in the first round of the finals.
Yeah,
and they played
got
them
beat by
both
50 the first week.
Yeah, they played them both at Jubilee, I think.
Yeah.
And there were thousands, tens of thousands. They would have got 70,000 had they played it at the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah.
But they missed the opportunity and were sort of stuck by this home ground thing. Mind you, when I was a general manager of Panthers, we made the finals. The first couple of years we made the finals, and
they had to send you to the footy stadium.
They made us play at the footy stadium or Homebush Stadium. They wouldn't let us play at Penrith. I don't know what happened there.
So clearly the decision's been made that week 1 finals,
yeah,
clubs will host. It doesn't matter capacity.
But
numbers
surely,
and bums on seats doesn't matter week 1.
Surely the NRL reserves the right to move a game if they see it's in the best interests of the game.
But then what will happen is that Penrith will get a full house for Warriors, and they'll be allowed to play it there. But if the Sharks move because they've got a lower capacity ground, they'll say, well, if we're moving, why aren't they?
Well, depends. See, Penrith are playing an out-of-town team, right? So if the Sharks were playing the Cowboys, that's fine. Fill up Shark Park, all right? Because if you took it to Allianz or Accor or one of those other ones, you're only going to get 15,000, 20,000 people anyway. It's going to look half empty. Doesn't look good on TV.
Well, 20,000 is still double the capacity of
but
Shark
yeah, but
Park.
it's not the away fans that are missing out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but if Panthers say played Parramatta in a semi-final, they should be playing that at Accor and getting 50,000. Is what they should be doing.
Why don't they just move them all back to neutral grounds?
Well, yeah, that could be. You could make.
We've got Allianz. It costs us God knows how much. But it's not even being used.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
Penrith can go and
think,
play there.
But it's got to be worth a crowd. You just can't take a game between Canberra and Newcastle to Allianz if it's a finals match because you're not going to get a crowd. You'll only get a certain number that will travel and make the effort to get there. But I think the NRL should at all times reserve the right to move a finals match if they believe it's in the best interests of the game. I'm quite sure that if they moved Roosters and Sharks to Parramatta Stadium,
yeah, absolutely,
they would fill the stadium.
30,000, for sure,
easily, and it would be a great atmosphere.
And it doesn't favour anyone.
Doesn't favour either team. I wouldn't. If I was the Sharks, I wouldn't be afraid of playing Roosters at Allianz anyway. I mean, I coached and was involved with the Roosters for a long, long time. We never felt like we had a home ground advantage. Everyone liked to come and play at the Sydney Football Stadium.
Yeah,
it never was really a home ground advantage. We loved playing there, but it was never a great home ground advantage. It was. I think people get a little bit of a phobia about that. But in this case, particularly with the works going on at Shark Park and the fact that it's under-resourced anyway, I think it's a bit silly for the game to play. Mind you, for television, it's going to look great. Every seat will be full. It'll be pumping. It's the Bermuda Triangle. Things will be happening.
Well, they need every advantage they can get at the moment. They were. We'll talk about the game. You sound like Barry White today. What?
I know. I'm putting my Barry White voice on.
You all right?
Well, I went to the Bulldogs presentation night last night.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, you had a few beers?
No. Oh. I don't drink. But I was just out late and up early this morning, just a bit croaky, that's all.
Are you a Barry White fan?
Barry White?
Yeah.
What, in the 70s or something?
Yeah, Can't Get Enough of Your Love Baby. That was one of his, wasn't it?
I wasn't worried about Barry White in the 70s, baby.
A Raiders win over Newcastle would be that club's most famous win.
No. They've had a lot of famous wins over the years. Yeah, I think their most famous win was probably the '89 Grand Final.
Oh yeah,
which won their first premiership.
I should rephrase that, shouldn't I? It would be their most unlikely win. Would that be a more accurate description?
No, I don't think so. It will be a huge task for them to go to Newcastle in front of that. Is a real home ground advantage.
Oh, is it what?
To go to Newcastle in front of that crowd, given the way they're going at the moment, the injuries, the suspension, and the way Newcastle are going, anticipating they'll be very close, if not full strength. And the Raiders, as I've said a number of times this year, they're a funny team. they've done really well to get where they are. You can't knock where they are. I just can't understand it sometimes. They haven't looked like a final side for the majority of the year, but they've managed to win enough games to get there and qualify. So they're in with a live hope. While there is life, there is hope. But I can't see it on the weekend. But
they went on that big run through the middle of the year. And
Yeah.
we were even asking here, are they a smoky for the comp? But the last 6 weeks, they have tapered off.
I think they had a very good draw.
Oh, okay.
I think sometimes they get lucky.
All right. Well, it would be a
But,
huge upset.
they've worked hard. They've worked hard. They deserve their spot. And while you're there, you're a hope. You're a chance.
I sort of wonder what the immediate future looks like for the Raiders with Whiten going, Fogarty's apparently hunting around, and he's only a casual fill-in, if you like, but Matt Frawley, he's going to the UK. They're losing key men.
Yeah, they are. And I understand they've got plenty of money to spend, but there is not much on the market at the moment. There is not much on the market at the moment. They got really good development down there. They've got some really good kids coming through the system. Whether they're ready for NRL or to be winning at NRL level at the moment is another thing. But I'd imagine they've got some promising kids there that will play NRL in the next couple of years. But there's not a lot on. I've never seen the market like this at the moment.
Just, I was going to ask you this later, but I might just dovetail it in here. With Luai, the big diamond in the market at the moment, could a team like Canberra with a war chest, could they target him to play halfback?
Well,
is he a halfback?
Jerome could play halfback, yes.
Yeah.
No risk.
Could they offer him stupid money to go to Canberra and play halfback?
Well, I don't think any money would be stupid for Jerome Luai.
Well, yeah, but
He's a
huge,
Premiership winner,
like we're talking.
He took Samoa to the World Cup.
Yeah.
He's a representative class player. He's played Origin.
Well, when I say stupid money, I say money out of context with the salary cap sort of offer.
An offer you can't refuse.
That's the one. That's the one.
Refuse. Well, he's still not off contract till the end of next year, so you're gonna have to wait.
Would you be prepared to wait 12 months for him?
2 Christmases away. So, well, I'd be prepared to wait for a player like that. Yes, of course. Yeah, but it doesn't fix their problem for next year.
No. All good things come to those who wait, Gus.
Well, got to have a long-term plan, I guess.
Andrew Webster. Oh, sorry. Dom Young's the best winger in the game.
No.
Okay.
Why? Because he's put a couple of put-downs in the corner.
He's got 23 tries.
Yeah, he's
acrobatic, makes yards, breaks tackles.
He's playing on the end of a very good back line. He's one of the good ones.
Yeah.
He's one of the, I wouldn't say
he's world class. Would you put him as he's a world class winger?
Yeah, well, he's playing in the NRL. If you're playing in the NRL, you're world class. Yeah, he's a good player. I don't know if he's the best.
Who is the best?
Don't know. I'd have to think about
Brian To'o won the Brad Fittler medal the other night.
Yeah, well, he's hard to beat. He's making 300 metres every week and scoring tries and saving tries. He'd be very, very hard to beat.
Talangi's come on this year, hasn't he? Great Origin series.
Yeah. There's some really good wingers around.
The Fox?
The Fox scored 3 on the weekend, the Fox.
Andrew Webster will become one of the game's super coaches.
Well, he's young. He's done his apprenticeship and he's shown right from the get-go now that he's got an NRL team that he can do the job. And he gets a chance to grow with that club. You know, I said for many years the Warriors should be a juggernaut, and they just had to get everything right there in New Zealand. And they're on the right track now. They've certainly been working hard for a number of years. We talked about the COVID period where they were sort of spinning their wheels and making it very difficult. But while that was happening back in New Zealand, they were getting their ducks in a row. And I see very, very promising things for the Warriors. What you're seeing this year, I think, is the forerunner to some great success down the track. And no doubt that they've now got confidence in this coach and believe they've signed him up longer term. And he gets a chance to execute everything he's ever learned about the game and grow with the Warriors. And I'm sure he'll do a very, very good job. He's got great demeanour.
He's got great demeanour about him.
Yeah.
Like he's down to earth. He seems to have a great rapport with his players. I've seen some vision of him talking to Sean Johnson before a game and then they just have a laugh together. You know what I mean? Like a back slap and But that's sort of it's in contrast to what you expect. Like the Bellamy's of these people, they're so intense. He seems really relaxed.
Communication and relationships rule the world, mate.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you're doing. So he's obviously got that gift, which is really, really important. Yeah, they've had a great year, the Warriors, and they're not gone yet. They're just flying in there under the radar. He'll have something up his sleeve, and they'll be hard to beat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just talk with the Warriors too. I put some stats together, just having a look at these finals, and we talk about the Penrith defensive record, which is just amazing. 312 points in 25 games. So, a couple of converted tries a game on average. Broncos got the second best defence, 113 points worse off. Warriors got the third best defence in the comp. That's a rapid improvement. Rarely have we seen a Warriors team with defensive resolve. But this one, when you consider their attack's only fifth best, the success they've achieved this year is on the back of their defence.
Yeah, well, generally, the team that wins the comp is the best defensive team in the competition. As it turns out, they'll probably be the best attacking team anyway. But that's just how it works. But if you look at the Premiership ladder, other than a few anomalies along the way, generally defence defines your position on the ladder. Generally, it's very close to the mark. So
but we haven't thought about Warriors teams as being defence-oriented teams.
Well, I have this year.
Over the years.
Yeah, they've been good.
It's been a great turnaround, a great advertisement for the skill of the coach. A couple of tantalising questions to get us in the mood for finals. What's the best finals game you played in?
The best finals game that I played in?
Yeah.
The best finals game I played in was the 1981 semi-final Newtown versus Manly.
Ooh. Take us through that one.
That was the one with the big brawl at the start of the game.
Oh, right.
And then we had to play 78 minutes, 12 aside, which was very taxing.
Oh, who got sent off?
Steve Bowden got sent off for Newtown.
Is that the Broadhurst Bowden one?
Yeah, and
that was
Terry
brutal.
Randall got sent off for Manly.
That was a horrible fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had a ringside seat.
Did you?
That's right in the middle of it.
Oh.
Yeah, no, she was a wild opening to the game.
Was that premeditated?
There's a long story about that.
Is there?
There is a long, long story.
Oh, come on.
Eh?
Come on.
Nah.
Tell us.
Takes too long.
I don't care.
Takes too long.
We're here early. Let's go. Why was this like quite a time in the works or something?
No. What happened was Newtown played. It was a top five. So 2 played 3 and 4 played 5 on the first weekend.
Yeah.
Minor premiers were Eastern Suburbs. 2 versus 3 was Parramatta and Newtown.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 and 5 was Manly and someone. I can't remember who they played. So on the Saturday, Manly wins, and they go through to play the loser of 2 versus 3. We play Parramatta, and we're beaten 10-8. So we now play Manly next week. And our captain is a bloke called Tommy Raudonikis.
He wouldn't like Manly very much.
Well, he didn't from his old Western Suburbs days. So he sort of he came into training to Henson Park on the Monday night, and he got us all in the room. Yeah, now listen. I'm telling you. He said, these blokes, he said, I know what they're thinking. They think we're cats. They think we're dogs. I don't know how it's a cat and a dog at the same time, but I think we're cats. They think we're dogs. I know what they're doing. They're going to put on a stink in the first scrum. The first scrum is going to be a stink. I'm telling you, I know what they'll be doing. First scrum's going to be, if we don't win the fight, we won't be winning the game. Whoever wins the fight wins the game. I'm telling you, I know what they're thinking. Which we sort of shrugged our shoulders because he said that every Monday, Anyway, he comes in on Tuesday and he's at us again. I'm telling you, they think we're weak. They think we're cats. They think we're dogs, and there'll be a fight in the first scrum, and we've got to win the fight. And so by about Thursday, we're thinking he must know something. Like he hasn't let up all week. There's going to be a fight in the first scrum. And what we didn't know was that over at Manly, Les Boyd, his former Western Suburbs teammate, he says, I know Tommy well. I know what he'll be thinking this week. He'll be thinking there'll be a stink in the first scrum. He said, we want to put a stink on the first scrum. He said, we've got to be ready because I know what Tommy's like. Tommy will be trying to get a stink in the first scrum. So Tommy's telling us they're going to start it. Les Boyd's telling them we're going to start it. First scrum's going to blow up. So we get there on the day of the game and we're in the old cricket ground dressing rooms there. I'll never forget it. We're sitting in these old wooden things, and our coach Warren Ryan, who was very deliberate, sitting at the front of the room, And Tommy's standing alongside of him, and he's rocking back and forth. And Warren's giving us our instructions, and he says, he's talking about this and talking about that. And Tommy said, yeah, finished, coach? He said, Tommy, I'm not finished. He said, yeah, shut up. Everyone shut up. Man's a genius. Listen. So he does all that, and then Warren's finally finished. You finished, coach? He said, yeah. And then Tommy turns to me, he says, forget all that shit. I'm just telling you, we've got to win the fight in the first scrum. Let's get up. And in them days, you didn't go outside to warm up. We'll warm up. We've got to warm up. Yeah, so we warmed up, and he tackled Stephen Blythe into the lockers. And it's on in the dressing room, and everyone's refereeing, pulling each other around. We've got to pumped up for this fight. So out we run onto the field, and Manly kicks off, and it was an amazing opening because I think Phil Sigsworth, one of the first tackles of the game, breaks through them and runs 50 yards upfield. So we're on the attack, and on fifth tackle we kick the ball, they get it, and then a couple of tackles later they throw it back to Graham Eady. He kicks downfield, and the ball goes bounce, 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 bounce. Left turn goes in the touch.
Uh-oh.
And there's 26 blokes on the field have gone. You can feel the breath come in. We're walking down to the scrum, and they're looking at us, and we're looking at them, and we don't know, and everything. So John Gosher's the referee. So we get towards packing the scrum, and John Gosher says, it's Newtown's feed. Tommy, the ball's over there. He says, forget the ball, pack the scrum. He said.
Oh, that's the best story ever.
So
forget the ball.
Anyway, she's on. She's absolutely on. And anyway, they separate the two teams. They send two blokes off, and then John Gosher gets the two captains. I think it was Max Krilich from Manly and Tommy. And he gets them in. He said, now, I don't know who started that. And Tommy said, they did. They were talking about it last Monday. He said, well, I want you to go back and tell us your team there's no more, all right? There's no more. No more. All right? I'm going to keep sending people off. There's no more. Go back and tell you. I'll make sure he tells his team. Yeah, Tommy, you just tell your team. Yeah. So Tommy's walking back. Boys, we're going to have no more of that, no more of that. And he looks over his shoulder. He gets in the huddle. He says, how good was that? He said, I think we've got these blokes. He said, maybe we just need one more go at them. So two tackles later, Thomas started another fight.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, she was funny.
That's
funny
brilliant.
game.
What a story.
But she settled down to a game of football after that. So.
Who won again?
Newtown.
Yes. That's great. That's great. Gee, it must have been for a bloke to get sent off.
Yeah.
There's a longer fight in the early 80s.
There's a longer version in it. Well, yeah, she was.
That was awful.
Yeah. And that Mark Broadhurst, the bloke he hit, I think he headbutted him at some stage. Mark Broadhurst was a renowned fighter, I believe, in New Zealand. He was something of a.
I think that, yeah. He
was something of a fighter, and Steve Bowden was a strong man, like a big man. Probably cost us the comp. If he doesn't get suspended, I think we win that comp. But as it turned out, he got suspended, didn't play in the final or the grand final. But at one point, everyone was sort of pairing off in twos and threes and grappling and punching and doing whatever they're doing. And all of a sudden, you could hear this thud. And everyone went, oh! And you knew what had happened. Someone had headbutt someone, And I don't think he deliberately tried to do it, but he was just defending himself. And he got Mark Broadhurst on the cheekbone. And anyway, late in the game, I hit a ball up under the post. We were going to go for a field goal. And Kenny Wilson's waiting for the ball. And I've hit it up under the post. And, it's late in the game, but still there's swinging arms and everything. And this bloke got me right across the chin with this punch, got me right on the chin. And I got up to play the ball, and I looked, and it was Mark Broadhurst, and both eyes were shut.
Yeah.
He couldn't see. And I'm thinking, how tough are you? Incredible.
Oh, it's awful. You see his face. It's like he's gone through a meat mincer.
Incredible. Yeah, very, very tough man. She was tough times.
Tommy.
There's a longer version of that with a lot more swearing. But
yeah, that's brilliant. I love it.
So funny.
What's the best finals game you've watched? Oh, sorry.
I think we're cats. I think we're dogs.
I think they're cats and dogs.
How can I be a cat and a dog at the same time?
Oh, God love him.
Tommy. He's in the dressing room after the game and they're beautiful. Yeah, that was good. We bashed them. That's good.
He was a bit sadistic, Tommy. Best finals game you've watched?
I've watched? Oh, gee whiz. Best finals game I've watched. I don't think anything can go past the Thurston drama.
No.
With the Cowboys winning their first premiership.
Might be the best game ever.
Well, it certainly finished that way. It was exciting. I can't remember it being great the whole way through, although Broncos and Cowboys always produced a good quality game. But the drama at the end of it was incredible. Just you couldn't script that. You couldn't script it any better. That the game's number one player had a kick from the sideline after the siren to win the game for Cowboys and win their first ever premiership. And for all money, the ball is going through the posts. It's curling back. It's going to go through the posts. And for some reason, the football gods just straightened it up and it hit the upright. And then they let him kick a field goal 5 minutes later. And I think, well, why don't you just give him the goal? It would have been the greatest single moment in rugby league history. That would have been the greatest ever moment in rugby league history. They would have been replaying that for years and years and years and years and years. Now they replay the field goal.
And the kick, just because it was maybe better.
Well, yeah, but you know the theatre. I remember the setting up for that goal, and to think about all the hours and all the years as a kid and all the dreams of playing first grade, and we all do it. Doesn't matter if you're having a putt to win the US Open, or you're having a kicking a goal to win the game, or you got to hit a six off the last ball to win the Test match. I mean, you dream about these things as a kid, and here you are after all this time. You know, there's 80,000 people. There's 4 million people watching on TV. Your club's a chance of winning its first ever premiership ever. And, you know, here it is, the game's number one player. Not just any player, the game's number one player at the time. A kick from the sideline to win the game after the siren.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What a moment. Why did the football gods deny that?
Do you know, that game, it was at 16-12 for a long time in the second half. Remember that Brisbane kept kicking it out, trying to protect the lead? And even watching that, like that even added to the drama because you just knew that they didn't want to score another one, so it was just hanging there. It was just hanging there for them. But don't forget the try. Don't forget the Morgan pass to Felt to set it all up.
Yeah. Well, and Thurston running across field, running backwards across field, was the last play of the game. They only had to make one tackle. One tackle to win the comp, the Broncos.
You ready for finals yet, people? And you know this, you've seen this with a million footballers, I'm sure, but when I talk to him for Stories of Origin about how he was able to execute those great moments, it's all work. Like he talked about how he'd set up a rowing machine on the sideline in Townsville, and he'd row 300 metres, then he'd get off and he'd kick 2 conversions from touch, then he'd do it again and again and again. It's just
get his breathing right, get his heart rate down. I remember the goal he kicked in the Origin. His shoulder was gone. Remember, he played virtually the whole game with a bad shoulder.
Car accident.
And he kicked a goal from the right-hand touchline again, his bad side, and he virtually just willed it through the posts, you know, under enormous pressure. And he couldn't play in Game 3, but he got them into Game 3. They weren't going to be in Game 3. They had to win that one to square the series, and
it was incredible.
He kicked an amazing goal.
My God, he was a player.
He was a competitor. Yeah, and like. He didn't have the best kicking action, nor did he have the best. His kicking technique was not perfect at all. It was like an individual one. Had a big hook on the ball, and he kicked it flat. And Darryl Halligan, one of the game's leading goal kick coaches, he was one of the game's greatest goal kickers, but he does a lot of coaching now, still does it today, does a number of clubs. And I often said to myself, if you had to pick one kicker to kick a goal for your life, who would it be? He said Thurston. And he said, out of all of them, he's probably got the worst technique.
Yeah.
He said it's his own technique, and it's the only, but he's got so much trust in it, and he's got so much belief in it. You know, like the really great kickers like your El Masris and Dan Carters and all those sort of blokes, you know, rugby and all that. There's some brilliant kickers around, which shocked me. So I said, if you had to get one bloke to kick it for your life, who would it be? He said Jonathan Thurston, which was a big rap.
I'd pick El Masri. Who would you pick?
Hasm. I saw Hasm kick goals at Penrith Park one day.
Now, Freddie talked about this last week. We've been trying to find it. Yeah. Was it into the wind?
I can't remember. I wasn't coaching. I can't remember if I was working on radio or working with Channel 9. I can't remember. Might have been working on radio because it's... But at Penrith Park there, because it's got the 2 open ends, and late in the year you get those... strong westerly winds, and sometimes at Penrith there's very strong southwesterly winds, and it makes it a nightmare for the kickers, and it swirls through the ground, so you're never really sure what the angle is. But when you're kicking, most kickers will try to kick with the wind, like try to shape it with the wind if they can. If they've got to work it into the wind, they can't do it. So they just try to aim a little bit narrower or a little bit wider and try to put their own kick on it. That day, he kicked goals from both sides of the uprights, into the wind, into a crosswind, right to left, left to right, and shaped the ball into the breeze on each time. So he actually shaped the ball into the breeze left to right, shaped the ball into the breeze right to left. It was one of the greatest kicking displays I'd ever seen. The best goal kicking display I ever saw was Ross Conlon. I think he kicked 10 out of 10 at Henson Park one day. I was playing with him. And Canterbury, we played Newtown. I'm pretty sure he kicked 10 goals that day. And he kicked them from all over the ground. These days...
With the old balls too.
With an old leather ball, standing it up on its point. Right? No mound or sand or plastic tee or anything like that. And, and Henson Park's a wobbly ground. Like it's got a big camper on it, but he... and in those days, there were penalties from scrums and there were penalties in general play. And you don't see a lot of penalty kicks for goal these days. Back then, there was a lot of them. He kicked 10 goals, I'm pretty sure. I might be correct. I might be remembering it wrong. The brain's going. But I remember it was one of the greatest goal-kicking displays I'd ever seen that day, too. Ross Conlon, the kicker.
We couldn't do it now, but it'd be great to find an old leather steed and get some of the modern day goal kickers to see how they go.
Yeah. Well,
particularly when it's wet.
Well, particularly, it was like a brick when it was wet. It was really heavy. You couldn't kick it anywhere. No. You couldn't hold on to it. It used to be slippery and greasy. But the ball, you never got you wanted an older ball because it'd be roughed up a little bit. The new ball was shiny and slippery, so you'd try to get the roughed up ball. You'd take in the training, but because they were inflated with air. And because it was leather and there was stitching and all that sort of thing with it, and it have a rubber bladder in it, the balls would bend out of shape. So the idea was, when you'd put the ball on the mound, and most people were toe pokers, you kick it straight. You'd rarely get a ball with a nice straight seam, right? And sometimes one end of the ball was fatter than the other. It just used to distort. The ball wasn't elliptical. It had to have a fat end and a narrow. You go and ask the old goal kickers. I've never spoken to blokes. Mick Cronin might be the best judge because he was the best toe poker of the day. And we sort of had these rules. You'd put the fat part at the bottom, and wherever the seam went at the top, that part you'd aim at the post, the seam, because you figure, and sometimes one side of the ball will be fatter than the other, and then you have to think, that will weigh down and move the ball a bit that way or a bit that way. It was a no wonder they couldn't.
Like another world.
Yeah, no wonder they couldn't kick. And the fields were uneven and dusty and dirty, and it was until someone decided just kick it round the corner like a soccer player. Then it got a lot easier for them.
Fantastic.
And they got perfect fields now and kicking tees.
I wonder if anyone does have an old steed and something. That would be fun. Get Nathan Cleary to kick the old ball and see how he goes.
I was actually going through the other. I've got one at home. We used to get a game ball for man of the match. So I've got all the signatures are slowly fading on it, but so I got a game ball one day for man of the match voted by your teammates, which is pretty special. And some of the all the signatures staying through. But I've never blown it up. It's still flat. And I've never done anything with it.
Do you reckon that'd be fun? Get the best goal kickers now, give them the old ball.
Well, I'm sure Steeden have got some.
Let Steeden. We'll talk to our mate.
Talk to Steeden, and we'll get a couple of the old goal kickers out. A couple of the new
modern day
goal kickers. I'd love to get some old balls, the ones we actually really kicked with.
Yeah.
Some of them, by the end of the year, the leather would get a bit thinner, and they would float on the breeze. You'd kick them, and in those days, you couldn't trust yourself with the end over end type kick they use today. We used to torpedo the ball.
Yeah, and it was an easier ball to torpedo.
Yeah, we used to torpedo the ball. And we didn't have the crossfield bombs and all that sort of stuff as well. And we didn't have the amount of grubber kicking for tries and all that they did. But
Ricky Stewart used to belt that torpedo, and it used to bounce 20 metres in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I remember watching those 1990-91 grand final. It got a bling. It was like a rubber ball.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes they'd bring a new ball out for the finals, and it'd be so slippery you couldn't hang on to it because the leather would be shiny. It was really hard. And then years later, when the synthetic balls first came in, there were different types of balls in New South Wales and Queensland.
I was just going to say that. In Origin, they used a different ball.
So the first time I experienced it was we played the first Origin game in 1992 in Sydney, And John Simon
Yeah.
was our halfback. Ricky pulled out with a hamstring injury, a minor hamstring injury. And John Simon came into the side, and we played without game. And we won. We weren't expected to win, but we won. Game 2, we went up to Brisbane, and we played in the wet against Brisbane. We were beaten 5-4.
With a yellow glowing...
Yellow with black, had black
Yeah.
ends on it. It was a different make of ball.
Well, I'm trying to think what it was called.
And Ricky couldn't kick it. Like we had to get some to practice it so he could kick it, because we wanted to train with the balls that they had. And he was blowing up. He said, "I can't kick this ball. It won't come off the boot. It won't do it." It felt a bit thinner.
Yeah.
And a bit heavier.
Yeah.
Isn't
that incredible?
And until they got the texture right on the ball, the first few versions of the synthetic ball, the all-weather ball, to try and get away from the leather ball that used to be hopeless in the wet, like hopeless. And wet fields were muddy and wet, and there was no drainage, and there'd be pools of water. And, like I said, you play on some grounds, they'd suck your boots off the mud, you'd sink down into it. And it's a different planet, mate. Different planet.
Oh, no, it's the best.
Different planet back then to what they have today. Different planet.
What was that ball called?
What ball?
The one in Queensland. I'm trying to remember what it was
Yeah,
called.
I can't remember.
Oh, no. See, the Queenslanders. Throwing your ball.
And rugby had a different sort of synthetic ball. Rugby had a different sort of synthetic ball, which was really easy to kick.
The Gilbert
Ball was really easy to kick.
It was much rounder.
Looked like a soccer ball.
It did.
Felt like a soccer compared to a rugby league ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was much easier to kick, much easier with a predictable flight. So they had to get something in between. I can't remember the brand of the ball they played with in Queensland.
I'll look it up in a minute.
But Ricky Stewart had sleepless nights about trying to.
There you go.
kick
How
this
good.
ball.
What a great start.
By the time we got to game, he was right. He was firing it off into the heavens. But
He was unbelievable. He's
took
the
a
best
while.
torpedo kicker. He was awesome.
Well, everyone kicked torpedoes.
But he used to belt the absolute living crap out of it, didn't he?
You just,
Matt Burton would have gone pretty good.
well, you kick anything.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I sense a little hesitation in you regarding Brisbane. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, look, Broncos have had a marvellous season. I rate them really highly. At the start of the year, I think on this podcast, they asked me, is there a team from outside the 8 that could make a run? And
Yes.
the Broncos the previous year were top 4 all year and then had that collapse at the back end of the season. And I just thought with Reece Walsh going there and the experience of the previous year, and given that only a couple of years prior to that, they were actually wooden spooners with a lot of the same players that were still then were now there. These, Fleglers and these sort of players were really coming into their own. Payne Haas and those players. And I said, well, if there's one team from outside the 8 that could really make a run, it would be the Broncos. And they've done that. They haven't played finals for a while. And defensively, I know they've got a great record in defence. I just don't know how it's going to stand up to finals pressure and to there, particularly if they keep trying to be as flamboyant with the ball as they have been and making some of the mistakes that they make. Adam Reynolds is really the governor on that team. And that's why I say they can't win the comp without Adam Reynolds. He's the governor on that. He's the game manager. He's the tempo man. When he doesn't play, there's no tempo to their football. It's just go flat out, foot to the boards, go as fast as you can for as long as you can. And if we make mistakes, who cares? And go from there. And
They've blown ordinary teams away like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the difference between the top teams and the bottom teams is horrendous. Like it's massive. It's so hard from the bottom teams some days. On some days, if the top team plays well and you're off your game and you're under strength, you're going to get beaten by 50 or 60. That's just, like, sometimes you get beaten by 40 and you're pretty happy with it. It's just how it is. But, the Broncos, look, they've got a chance. They've got a real second to none chance. I just don't know that. I think next year, maybe. I think they desperately need this finals experience. Adam Reynolds is the key. And they've got to win one before he retires. So it's either this year or next year. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying not yet.
Okay. So if it's not Brisbane as if there is someone that could beat Penrith, you don't think anyone will beat them, but is it not Brisbane?
Well,
what about Newcastle?
No, I don't think Newcastle can beat Penrith. I think Newcastle can win a couple of semis.
Yeah,
I do. I think that. Look, I'm not writing off the Storm from winning this week against the Broncos.
Right. Okay.
You know, they've got a really good record against them. They've got big match players. They've got a finals coach who's been down this road every year. Every year he goes to the finals. They know what they're doing. He'll be able to pick the Broncos apart. Defensively, he's the best game planning defence coach in the league. Like, the Broncos have had a history in big games of blotting out the danger in the opposition team and restricting their influence on the result. So the Broncos, if they get to the front at any stage of this semi-final against, if the Storm get to the front of any stage of this semi-final, that's when your lack of finals experience can sometimes kick in. And the Storm won't let you off the hook. They'll strangle you to death if they've got you down, or you get frustrated, or the scoreboard starts to get into your head. If the Broncos start to panic because they get 6 behind, 10 behind, 12 behind, and then start to push the pass, and the Broncos' defence just starts to annoy them and irritate them and shut them down. And the things that were working 2 weeks ago aren't working tonight. And, mind you, Broncos might come out and blow them away. I might know what I'm talking about. But I just think on finals experience, both from the coach and the roster, Adam Reynolds is such a key for the Broncos. But the Storm is there. It'll just be business as usual for the Storm. They won't be intimidated by going to Suncorp Stadium. They won't be intimidated by a Queensland crowd.
They love going to Suncorp Stadium.
They've been to the finals. They've been down this road so many, many times. You know, your Munsters. What is going to happen with Pappenhausen? What will they do with him? So there's a number of aspects to that game. We're not on to talking about the games yet.
No, we'll dissect it a little bit later. But I'm just interested in your thinking there. There's a really great a piece in the Sydney Morning Herald today. Dan Walsh has written it about the lesser lights, if you will, in the Newcastle team. He's highlighted Phoenix Crossland earns a little more than 10% of Kalen Ponga's record $1.4 million salary. And that's just how he likes it. Because alongside fellow playmaking bargain Tyson Gamble, the self-declared Newcastle underdogs bring serious value to the Knights roster. Crossland gets $150, they say. Tyson Gamble, along with Matt Frawley, are the two lowest earnings playmakers in the finals. They reckon on about $180,000 each. Haven't they got enormous value out of those two? Phoenix Crossland has been phenomenal for them.
You need those players. I actually went and interviewed Phoenix Crossland last year. I drove to Newcastle and sat in a coffee shop with him for an hour and a half. Had to talk about him and his football. And he was an outstanding junior halfback. Outstanding junior halfback. And we were in the market for young halfbacks. You know, we were prepared to buy a few and see who'd rise to the top. And went and had a real talk to him because it had sort of gone away for him. You know, they were playing him as a 5'8", they were playing him as a lock forward, they were playing him a little bit of hooker. At that stage, they weren't playing him much dummy half at all. So I'd gone to talk to him about halfback. Where was he still pursuing that dream of being an NRL halfback? I had to talk to him about his football and his life as a professional footballer. It was a really interesting hour and a half conversation. And in the end, he stayed in Newcastle. We didn't make an offer because he just hadn't done it for a couple of years as a halfback. I didn't consider buying him as a hooker, but they've moved him to 9 and he's done an outstanding job. Absolutely brilliant, outstanding job. So we were looking at sort of shorter term and longer term solutions and, what we had in the club and what was coming through the system and what might be down the track. And do we wait? Do we try and buy $1.5 million halfback? But, they're hard to come by and, can you entice them to a team coming last? They're the sort of things you're sort of dealing with when you're recruiting. But I went and had a long talk to him because I'd admired him as a young halfback coming through the system. But then Newcastle had sort of moved him away from that role and into other roles, and he'd become a utility. And the conversation was, how do you feel about that? Where's your career going if you're just going to be a utility player? Where do you think it's going to head to, and what would you prefer to do? And he was a really good conversation. He's a lovely young man, and we went in a different direction, and thankfully he did too, because now he's established himself there as their number 9. And he, at the time, he wasn't considering being a number 9. I'll tell you.
Well, just people would forget. Jaden Brayley got hurt. Was it the first game of the year or sick? Like it was first few weeks.
Yeah.
Like he's a big signing for them at dummy half.
Yeah.
Like they're in awful strife when he goes down. He has been outstanding. And look, even Andrew Johns would admit he might have been a little bit doubtful about Phoenix Crosland as a full-time hooker. He just sings his praises now. Just
Yeah,
says
he's been
awesome
phenomenal.
Just with his, particularly his defence.
Been phenomenal. But sometimes kids can get lost, and that's why I'm talking about the future of our playmakers in the game. And you look at all the top playmakers in our game, the vast majority of them are over 32 years of age.
Yeah.
They're not going to be here in 2 or 3 years. Who's the next rung coming through? Who's going to replace them? There's a lot of them. And Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds and Sean Johnson and Daly Cherry Evans and Cody Walker and like all the playmakers. Like even Mitchell Moses is now 30 years of age next year.
Mm.
Munster's 30 years of age, I think, next year or 31. They're not going to be around much longer. So I'm looking back and thinking, well, who are the next ones? Who are the next ones that when they get to 30 to 32 years of age that are going to be running this game? Well, it's not the 17-year-olds and the 18-year-olds now. And that's why your Sam Walkers and these sort of things, and even fellas that they write off or they criticise or they say they're not up to the mark, maybe not now, but down the track, they could well be, because you've got to be looking for the bloke that in 3 or 4 year times is going to be 28 years of age or 30 years of age, right?
Mm.
Because they're the ones that are going to be replacing those fellas.
Jack Cogger's a good example of that.
Perfect. Written off, but now come back in a good system. And depends in the system you're in, depends in how easily you are exposed. There are some players that are playing with clubs at the bottom end of the ladder that I've actually said to their managers, see if you can get a start at Melbourne, see if you can get a start at the Roosters, see if you can get a start at Panthers, because they won't get as exposed there, right? Because if you go out with a team that's down the bottom of the ladder and just doesn't have the leadership and doesn't have the senior players and doesn't have the nous around them or the quality around them, they get too easily exposed and they get written off. But if they who was the last kid that came into Penrith that didn't look like an NRL player?
Mm.
It happens all the time. The Roosters can do it. Melbourne Storm can do it. Like you come into that system and all you have to do is do your job and they look after you and the system works. And if you're in the wrong club and the wrong system and the depth is poor, you can be glossed over very, very quickly. And that's where I felt Phoenix Crosland was. He was he was a gun kid coming through, like a gun halfback. He was seen as going to be really good. And then it kind of all lost its way a little bit. It just lost its way. And sometimes they drop out of it and sometimes they make a comeback. I went to talk to him about, if you're giving up hope of being a halfback, of being an NRL halfback. And it was no. And I said, well, what are you doing about it? How are you approaching your football? We had a really good conversation. And in the end, we didn't go there, but I would never have given it a thought to be signing him as a hooker.
Mm.
But look what he's done.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff.
And it's an unfashionable spine. I mean, Pong is the Ferrari, but Gamble, he's been so admirable for them.
He's another one.
Real competitor.
He's another one. He's a competitive kid. He knows his stuff. Trains hard. He's aggressive. He backs his ability. Now, if it doesn't work for him in a couple of places, or he doesn't, he's got someone in front of him, or he's got his pathway blocked, or he's playing with a team that's poor defensively and he gets exposed. He hasn't got a great back rower to protect him on the edge, or he hasn't got a centre that knows what he's doing on the outside. You can just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tyson Gamble is in the right place at the right time now. He's in the right place at the right time. And I say to kids, 90% of this is to keep turning up. Just keep turning up. On and off the field. Keep turning up, keep turning up, keep turning up. And something will give for you. If you train hard and you work hard and you persevere and you play hard, it will come eventually. More players today are debuting at 25 and 26 years of age than ever before. You've got to be able to stick with it. And I think clubs write them off too early. I think junior rep coaching, junior league coaching is a little bit too elitist at times. There are diamonds in the rough there. You've just got to seek them out. Having said that, I would never have thought twice about recruiting him as a hooker at that stage.
Yeah,
you would now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
he might just think he's an out-and-out hooker.
Well, Lachlan Croker was another one. The boy that's playing with Manly.
Yeah.
Now he was considered a gun half coming through, half 5'8", playing in the Canberra Raiders system. But couldn't quite crack it to first grade. And when he did, Canberra weren't going well. Like they usually get into first grade because people are out playing Origin or people are injured. And he was how can you describe Lachlan? Some kids are extroverted and some kids aren't. Some kids are good at selling themselves and some kids aren't. Some kids go in and nervous about being good for the team and doing the right thing by the team. Other kids come in and just say, I'm here, it's my show, I'm going to run this the way I go. You know?
Okay.
So there's personality traits that come in with it as well. And sometimes you've got to nurse them through that period and help them to be able to take control of a team and be dominant and run the race. And they've got the ability to do it. They just don't have that personality at that time, or there's anxiety, or there's a lack of confidence, lack of belief, or scared of failure, scared of mistakes, scared of losing. There's a whole range of things you've got to work with them on. Lachlan Croker was a really talented young kid as a half coming through, but it just sort of it wasn't happening for him. He came out, his manager brought him out to Penrith when he was at the Raiders, and we had Clearys and Luais and Sullivans and Burtons and all these sort of fellas coming through. So I said, well, you're going to be in the same boat here at the moment, because there's, could have easily taken him as a second-grade halfback to see how it was. I said, but you're going to have the same problem here. He ended up going to Manly. And I guess they tried him a few times in the halves, and for whatever reason, it didn't work. But suddenly he went to 9, put on some weight, put on some muscle, built some confidence. Look at him now.
He was their Player of the Year 2022.
Yeah, that's how it develops for them. Now, what happens then is, if an 18-year-old kid's not playing like Andrew Johns, we'll turn him into a hooker. No, not at that age. You don't. You've got to persevere with it. Some are, it's hard for kids, mate. It's hard for kids to make it. And it's harder for our game to persevere, because it's a results-based business. You've got to win. You want the next big thing, but you want the bloke that can control the game. It's why these really great playmakers are playing for longer and playing older, because they get to 28, 29 before they really know their craft perfectly. The outlier is probably Cleary, but it's scary to think that Cleary and Luai are still 2 or 3 years away from their peak, from their absolute peak. And that's getting them to 28 years of age, and it's another 6, 7 years until they're the same age as Ben Hunt and these sort of fellas. Who are playing great football now. Cherry Evans looks ageless at the moment.
Great segue, Gus. That shows why you're nominated for an ACRA. Because...
What's an ACRA?
Australian Commercial Radio Award.
All right.
Manly, at their awards night last night, the best and fairest, Daly Cherry Evans. Players player, Daly Cherry Evans. Members voted player, Daly Cherry Evans.
Yeah, by the length of the straight. He was phenomenal this year. Phenomenal. Great for Queensland too.
Oh, was he what? Warriors. I'm going to run through these. Sean Johnson, Player of the Year, as you'd expect, and also the Simon Mannering Players Player of the Year. That's the Simon Mannering Medal, the Player of the Year. And look, he'll probably win the Dally M. Let's be honest. Dragons, Blake Laurie, Player of the Year. Well done. Now the Bulldogs. What about Jacob Preston? Won everything.
Yep.
First year.
Yep. Came there on a minimum wage, rookie contract, looking for an opportunity. He won
won everything.
He won the Dr. George Paponis Player of the Year Award. He won the NRL Members Player of the Year Award, and he won the Steve Mortimer Rookie of the Year Award. He debuted in round 1.
Isn't that awesome?
I'll tell you something else about him. He played more than half the year getting pain-killing injections in his shoulder pre-game and half-time.
Wow.
And he got suspended for a suspected hip drop, I think about 4 rounds from the end, and he would have been back to play, I think, in the last 2 rounds. Mm-hmm. But we made the decision to get that surgery done now, so he'd be right for the off-season. Might have cost us a win at the back end of the season. He would have been very handy for us, but we put him before the team, and when he got the suspension, we said, well, let's get the shoulder done now, and that way you'll get a full off-season in this. But for a kid that young to do what he did this year, not only the football that he played, he's obviously impressed a lot of people. He was a rookie. He debuted in round 1. But he did a lot of it under heavy duress. He had a really bad shoulder injury and got it needled every week to play. So he's a tough kid as well.
Yeah, super. It's not unprecedented, though, because over at the Tigers, Jareem Buller swept the pool. Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Players Player of the Year. What an arrival for him. They got to keep him. They got to lock him up for 10 years, if they can. You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Canberra, Joseph Tapane was the Mal Meninga Medal Award winner, and not surprisingly, Kalen Ponga.
I thought he had a really good year, Tarpany.
He's a good player.
A really good year.
And Kalen, despite, who would have thought at the start of the year, with all those head knocks and all that time out, that you'd say he'd come back, be player of the year, and spearhead them into a finals campaign. It's a funny game, rugby league.
It is, mate. It's a funny, funny game.
Each week, we'll be releasing an extra episode that features some bonus content, primarily with a range of the best Ask Gus questions and some other gold as well. And that'll be out on your podcast feeds each Sunday, which has been very popular. Gus's end-of-season awards. I hope you've given this some thought.
I've given it no thought. You're just putting it on me now. Where am I? On the wrong page.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes. You've got about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Who is your MVP of the regular season for 2023?
Tohu Harris.
In the comp?
Yep. He's been phenomenal. He's been phenomenal.
Wow.
Phenomenal.
What a great answer.
I know. You know, everyone picks the halfbacks or the flashy fullbacks and all that thing. Tohu Harris has been an absolute rock for the Warriors. An absolute rock. He has been brilliant. Great
answer. He's such a reliable leader, isn't he? Most valuable recruit?
Reece Walsh.
Yeah, hard to argue. Most improved?
Most improved player. That's an interesting one. Reece Walsh.
I'm trying to think who else has come on a long way. Nick Meaney?
Yeah, but Nick was going good last year too.
Yeah.
And right place, right time with the right club. He played with the Bulldogs for 2 years. They ran last for 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
He leaves there and goes to the goes to the Storm, and he's going to play finals again for the second time. So, just right place, right time.
Rookie of the year.
I'll go with Jacob Preston, our boy at the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Coach of the year.
I think the Warriors coach, Andrew Webster, they ran 15th or 14th or 15th or something last year, and they're up there in the top 4. That's a pretty big improvement.
Huge effort. And look, this is a hard one on no notice. Moment of the year.
Alex Twal scoring his first ever try.
Ah, yes. We salute you, Alex.
How do we go past that?
Ask Gus. This is an interesting question. Who's the best finals player you've seen?
Terry Lamb.
Ah. How come?
He just was. He just phenomenal. He loved them. He thrived on the pressure and thrived on the moment. He won premierships 84, 85, 88 and 95, I think, with the...
He did too.
With the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he was a great... Going back a bit in time there. There's been some great finals players over the years.
Freddie?
Yeah, Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk. You know, what Cooper
Jonathan
Cronk...
Thurston.
Yeah, what Cooper Cronk did, going from Melbourne to Roosters and winning 2 comps there, that's pretty awesome there. They bought him to win a comp and he won it for him. And he won it the first year with one arm, So
He should never have played.
Cameron Smith was a phenomenal big match finals player. They're probably the pick of them.
This is the most random Ask Us question we have received. Kate asks, if you had to choose an NRL player, past or present, to star in a comedy movie, who would it be? And what kind of movie do you think they'd excel in? Well, you've said comedy movie.
Yeah.
How random.
Yeah. Brian Fletcher. I can't believe someone's paying him to be himself.
He is like that. Like I've hung out with him socially a couple of times. He's the biggest space cadet just in the flesh.
Oh, yeah. I had to coach him for years.
How'd you get through to him?
I didn't. He handled.
How was he so good? He played for Australia.
He was playing with the Roosters. He got sacked from the club. He was playing lower grades. He got sacked from the club. He got in some incident. Something. I ran into him at a kebab stand late one night in the off season in Bondi Junction, just near where I lived. I went up the road to get a kebab, and here's Fletch holding court up there. And I said, what are you doing, mate? He said, oh, no. I said, well, you're not playing any footy? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, I might go and play with Paddo Colts. I said, you're better than that. I said, come. He said, oh, no, Roosters. He said, they sacked me. They won't have me back. I said, well, I'll smooth it over. I said, why don't you come back and have another go? And he said, no. So anyway.
How old was he?
Oh, I can't remember. He would have been 22.
Right, so young.
Young. So he played a bit of lower grades there, and I don't know why they sacked him. Uncle Nick had enough and just tipped him out. So anyway, we were training out at Daceyville out there at the back of Bonnie Doon Golf Club. We used to train on the fields out the back there. So I said, come down Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, right, be there, And we'd both been out having a night out, so we didn't know whether I was going to remember it or not the next day. So when I get to training the next afternoon at 6 o'clock, all the boys are sort of mingling in, they're getting in there, and I could see him sitting on a tree way over the other side of the ground. He thought I was joking. He didn't want to. So I had to go over and get him and bring him in. So anyway, he trained, he played. So 18 months later, our reserve grade coach comes into a selection meeting and he says, I said, what are you doing with your team? He said, I'll tell you one thing. He said, I'm not going with that Brian Fletcher again. I said, wait, he's a pain in the neck. He's a distraction. He said, all he wants to be is a comedian. I said, he's a mistake factor on the field. I said, he won't, he's got no discipline. He's got no this, he's got no that. He said, I'm dropping him. I said, don't drop him, mate. He said, no, I'm dropping him. He said, I can't stand him. I said, don't drop him. He said, I'm dropping him. I said, please don't drop him. He said, no, I'm dropping him. I said, well, don't drop him. I'll take him. He said, what? I said, I'll take him. Take him where? I said, I'll take him in the NRL team. He said, you can't drop him from reserve grade into the NRL team. I said, I'll take him. I'll take him in the NRL team. He said, you're mad. I said, he'll be playing for Australia in 18 months, mate. And he did. Took him into the first grade side.
He dropped him to first grade.
He got dropped from reserve grade into first grade. And we were playing down at Wollongong, playing against Illawarra. It was a must-win game for us. It was sort of in the middle of the season. And so I've got him down there, and he was going to come off the bench, fresh reserve. And so on the bus on the way to the game, I sat down and I gave him very strict instructions about what he was to do, what he wasn't to do, and didn't want to see this and didn't want to see that.
So could he believe you'd been picked in first grade, by the way?
No, he thought it was a G-up. He thought it was a G-up. So we've got on the bus, I've given him his lecture, and he sat on the sideline for 60 minutes. Right? For 60 minutes, he sat on the sideline. And we're winning pretty comfortably. I think we're about in front by about 34-6 or something like that. I've had a good day. We've had a good win. Everything's worked out. So I've rung down the sideline. It used to be phones. You rung down the sideline. So put Brian Fletcher on. So Brian Fletcher picks up the phones and his first words are, I don't think I can stuff it up from here, he said.
That's funny. Brian Fletcher.
I don't think I can stuff it up from here. But he did. He played Origin. He played Premiership winning team. 2002, he played Origin, played for Australia. A phenomenal footballer, but an even better comedian.
What about other notable mentions? Who else would... The Fox would be good enough in a film.
The Fox? He could only play himself. I don't think he could play anyone else.
Yeah. He's good value. Yeah. Dear. Mark Geyer? He'd be a henchman in some film.
He wouldn't remember his lines. Paul Sirendon was a funny man.
He was a funny man. He
is a
very
funny man. Yeah. He was a very funny man.
As a successful coach, player and administrator, what do you believe are the most critical qualities for a rugby league coach to possess? Asked Chloe. A lot of girls, a lot of ladies submitting questions today. Thank you very much, Chloe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the greatest gift a coach can give a player is confidence and the ability to think the right thing at the right time, the ability to control your thoughts and control your emotions and self-belief, self-confidence. Like we can all teach them how to play. We can all teach them and tell them what we think they should do. But a lot of the times they've got to work that out for themselves. You can run them through the skills and all the theory of the game and all that sort of thing, but they're the ones that have actually got to go out and win it. So a lot of that will come down to how they think and how much they believe in themselves and believe in the people around them. So I think the greatest gift a coach can give a player is self-confidence and the ability to think the right thing at the right time. And out of all my time in coaching, it boiled down to that rather than strategy and theory and how to catch and pass or how to tackle. They get all that anyway. They get all that technique stuff, but the ability to win, that comes from them. The ability to be motivated, that's got to come from them. Mm-hmm. The hard work, that's got to come from them, and the self-belief. Well, if you can get your player believing in himself and thinking the right thing at the right time, particularly under pressure and in big moments, I think that's the greatest gift a coach can give a player.
There you go, Chloe. Thanks for that very incisive question. 6 tackles trivia. How has Jordan come up with this? Like, you are 1,000,000,000 to 1. So it's that hard. I'm reluctant to even ask it. But I'll ask it for the benefit of our listeners. On Monday night, Daly Cherry Evans was named Manly's best and fairest. We know that. Who was the last Manly player not named Daly Cherry Evans to kick a field goal for Manly? It was in 2014. He played 22 first-grade games in the NRL, 5 for Manly, 17 for the West Tigers. Who was the last Manly player, aside from Daly Cherry Evans, to kick a field goal for the Seagulls? It was in 2014, and he played 22 career games in the NRL. I think he went to England. 5 for Manly, 17 for the Tigers. His first name's Jack.
Yeah, I think I know. I think I know it. And I think they lost on the day. I remember it. I think Storm beat Manly 20-something to 19 or something. Manly, kid called Jack Littlejohn.
Oh, stop.
I don't know why I remember it.
How did you know that?
I just remember it.
Oh, that'll do me.
I just remember it.
Did you see the answer on my sheet?
No.
That's amazing. That's your best get ever.
Yeah.
Jack Littlejohn.
I actually remember the game.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Manly, Storm come from well behind, I think. I think Manly got to 9 and kicked the field goal and probably thought it was over, and Manly ran over the top of them. Storm ran over the top of them. Jack Littlejohn, yeah.
Oh!
Because there was a time in my life when I considered buying him, Jack Littlejohn.
Oh, right.
Just as a backup half type player. He had a bit of ability, Jack Littlejohn.
I reckon he played a stack of games in England.
I'm pretty sure he went to England.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he went to England.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. You bowl me over every week. NRLW, a recap of what's happening. Mackenzie Neal got 3 games for a hip drop. 3 games. That's a long suspension in the women's competition. Broncos starting to find some form. Roosters. They lost Jess Surges to a hand injury, but still far too good for Parramatta. They look like they are the real deal. Round 8 this week. Now, I'm heading down to PointsBet Stadium for Thursday night footy. NRLW, of course, Thursday night footy over now with the finals, but you'll see it on 9. Sharks Dragons, the local derby. I think that'll be a very keenly contested match.
Nothing between those. The Sharks have been beaten by the Newcastle Knights and the Broncos the last couple of weeks, but they were very close matches, and they're probably 2 of the better teams in the comp. Dragons have been in good form too. I'll tip the home team, the Shark, to win that.
All right, Saturday, Newcastle. There's 2 games. Tigers, Broncos, and Newcastle. Oh, it's Newcastle Roosters at 1:30. What a clash.
Mm-hmm. Bronco to beat Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
Rooster to beat Knight. But a big game.
All right, and then Sunday, Seabus Super Stadium, Gold Coast, 2 games. Cowboys, Raiders, Titans, Eels.
Raider and Titan.
All right, NRLW Weekly. Ruan and Marley with all the information and all the...
Ask Ruan, she knows more than me.
Yes, all the details, all the detailed predictions about our women's game. And, of course, every game of the NRLW live and free on 9. Finals week 1, a preview thanks to Bluebet. What are you really gambling with? Free and confidential support available, gamblinghelponline.org.au. Friday night, 7:50. The comp starts again, and what a way to start it. A rematch of the clubs that played last week, but certainly... not the personnel. They are very formidable units, both of these teams. Brisbane, $1.60 favourites against the Storm at $2.35. Adam Reynolds is back. Patrick Carrigan is in. They were fearing he might miss a few finals games, actually, but they have got him in. Katani Stagg's back from suspension as well. Now, the interesting one, Gus, is that Corey H has been left out for Jesse Arthurs.
Mm-hmm.
And for Melbourne, Jerome Hughes is good to go. And Ryan Pappenhausen's on the bench in jumper number 17. So he'll give them a bit of X factor in whatever capacity Craig Bellamy decides to use him. Mouth-watering way to start the finals.
It is. I can't believe the difference in them in the betting, to be honest. Not that I want to talk about the odds, but big occasion. Adam Reynolds, for me, is the key. I spoke about this earlier in the podcast. I'll favour the home team narrowly. I will not be shocked if Storm beat them at all.
It's going to be a cracker. Now, early game here, Saturday, is out at Bluebet Stadium, Penrith. And the reason for that is because there's so many people watching in New Zealand, we want to get it away at a reasonable time over there. So Saturday afternoon footy, it'll be going off. I actually called the game last week on radio with Darryl Broman and Paul Gallen, and I don't think I've seen a better atmosphere at Bluebet Stadium, Gus. It was 5:30 Saturday. It was awesome.
Yep.
And that will be replicated this week. So a 4 o'clock kickoff. The Panthers, they're full strength. And the Warriors, well, they're a good team. Sean Johnson's there. Now, Tamare Martin is going to play in the halves because, as we know, Luke Metcalf is out. And Gus's player of the year, Tohu Harris, has been battling back spasms, but he's back in the lineup. So they're pretty much close to full strength as well.
Yep.
$24.20.
Dylan Wateni is a Lesniak. Tamare Martin and Wade Egan are all former Panthers.
They are.
Penrith will win. I think it'll be close for a long time. I think the Warriors know their stuff. The Warriors are going to be easy to beat. And I think the Warriors would have been much better if they were playing out there at 8 o'clock in the evening, a bit of dew on the surface and a bit of slipperiness and all that. You're playing them at 4 o'clock afternoon, nice dry afternoon. And Penrith, Penrith I doubt will lose, but Warriors will give a good account of themselves.
If you're looking for somewhere to go Saturday night, Panthers League Club. Place will be going bananas.
It's the only show in town, baby.
Saturday, 7:50. This finals double header here on night, and it is flip of the coin. $1.90 each of two. Sharks versus Roosters. Craig Fitzgibbon's gone the same 17 as last week. I don't reckon they played their full hand last week.
Who?
Cronulla. I don't think they showed him anything. They were really plain against the Raiders.
They've been playing for a while, mate. I think Rooster wins, and I think they win comfortably. I think Rooster wins.
Okay. Joey Manu's been named.
Yep.
Why do you think they win comfortably?
I think they'll just play too hard and fast. I think they'll play too direct. I don't think the Sharks like that very much, and I think they'll have a solution to. The Sharks' attack is brilliant, but it's one-dimensional too. It's both sides of the field, but it's the same sort of plays, instructions, and shapes over and over and over again. And I don't think the Roosters will be giving up.
Okay.
Giving up many points to that, to be honest.
So they're your strongest tip of the week, Rooster or Penrith, but.
When I was tipping them earlier in the week, they weren't favourites. Sharks were favourite, and I said Roosters will start favourite and they will win. And that's my prediction there. And I think in the last game. Knights at home to the Raiders. The Raiders have limped into the finals. The Knights are on a roll. Kalen Ponga's back, provided he's anywhere near fit. They should give the home crowd something to cheer for on the weekend. So the finals, I think, Broncos Storm. I don't know. I'm going to say Bronco, but I wouldn't be surprised if Storm wins. Panthers, after a tussle for 40, 50 minutes, I think will get the better of the Warrior. I think Roosters are certain to beat Shark, and I think Knights will have a handsome win over Raider.
Very good. Can't wait to rip into it. Thanks, Gus. See you over the weekend. That's 6 Tackles with Gus for Finals Week 1. Enjoy all the finals action here on 9. We'll talk next week.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
With the finals around the corner, NRL on 9 has you covered.
From match highlights, press conferences, and don't forget, Fred in the 8.
Of course.
NRL on 9 has you covered for everything. One-stop shop.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a moment.